briefly kind of listen to about sustainability today. Starting at the end, we got one of my favourite fashion tech designers, Pauline van Dongen. She has been an inspiration for me since I started writing about fashion tech 5 years ago. She's been my go-to. Next to Pauline is Theresa. We have worked together a couple of times on a few projects, and she is really passionate about the sustainable field, and she has a lot of knowledge in it. And then we have the lovely Marta. You're a massive sustainability person, aren't you, Marta? She is literally the warrior about sustainability. She's very passionate about it, and she's always sharing a lot of information. Next to me is Stella, who is the president of Fashion Revolution Luxemburg. And she's also a contributor to Fashion Nerd as well. She's written a few articles for us. So what I've done, I've put together an amazing team of women who are the leaders in this field. So hopefully we'll be able to share with you some amazing information today. So let's get started. Are you ready, ladies? I want to first start off about the fashion industry in general. So maybe you can all give me like a good opinion on that. The fashion industry is in the business of being good, to steal David Shah's line yesterday. I interviewed David Shah, and he was like, the fashion industry is in the business of doing good, which made it sound like they're just doing it just to come across like they're very green. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think the industry is adopting sustainability, or do you think they're just jumping on the bandwagon? Whoever wants to go first.
I can't.
Is it working?
Hello?
Oh. Would you like to start first, Marta, if it's working?
This one.
Okay, I think it's a little bit of both. It depends which company are you looking at as well. There are huge movements. There is Fashion Revolution movement, and they're educating us, consumer, about the whole problem with slavery in fashion, about pollution. There's also this so-called Greta movement, and a lot of discussion about climate change. So companies just can't pretend that they can't see it. So some, they do have it deeply rooted in the history, thinking about sustainability. They're really trying to make a change. And some are, trying a little bit using buzzwords, sustainability, and a little bit of greenwashing. And I was thinking that maybe that's not really good, but then I'm thinking, maybe actually it is also necessary, because it could target those consumers who are really not into sustainability, and they are pushed to really think about the movement, what's happening. And then it's becoming a trend, hopefully long-lasting trend, and also for consumers that do not think about it. They want to be trendy, so they want to be sustainable. So that's my thoughts.
And Theresa, you're from a luxury end of the business. What would you say the luxury fashion industry is doing about sustainability? Because there's a lot of pledges that are going on at the moment.
It's very fashionable to have a pledge. I think from a luxury perspective, and I come from LVMH, it's inevitable. We've seen the demand from our customers. We also are a vertically integrated business, so we hear directly from every level of the supply chain about how necessary this change is. We're a huge multinational, and we see what's happening around us. A few months back, we had Stella McCartney join the group. We've invested a lot in our CSR initiatives over the years, and whether it's the wines and spirits, watches and jewelry, fashion and leather goods divisions, this is one of the major topics for us. Not just this year or next year, but it has been for the last 5 years. And then from my own personal perspective, one of the things that I think luxury businesses can really help on is we have the margins to afford this. When you're making changes in your supply chain, your manufacturing, your fabrication, it can be costly, especially in the early days. If there's one segment that can manage this cost, it's the luxury business. And I think what's more luxurious than having a choice, and this is what our customers ask for, if they're asking for products which are better, that's something that we should be doing and responding to.
Pauline?
Yeah, well, what I'd like to add to this question is that what I think the companies that do good, that are changing not just their processes and their materials, but those are the ones that are also educating people. that are really transparent and communicating about their strategy when it comes to sustainability and being open about maybe materials that they're using or processes that are using that are not yet sustainable, but how they're planning to tackle it and to change it over time. And I don't see that enough. I see a lot of companies, of course, advertising with more sustainable materials, which is a good thing in itself, but I think we can push it much further. Because I think truly innovating the industry, making it more sustainable, really starts with knowledge and then also acting on that knowledge. And I think that's the responsibility that all the companies, all the designers also have. And I think it's quite striking also here to see if I'm hosting workshops, educating people about the combination of fashion and technology and also bringing sustainability in that equation, of course. It's a lot of design schools and universities and students that pass by and that are so eager to learn, not so much the companies.
I understand on that, because I think when you think of the word sustainability, I'm sure if I ask any of you in the audience, everyone's going to come up with a very different definition of what they think sustainability is. I mean, could you ladies define it? Could you let me know, what do you think when you think of the word sustainability?
Okay, I go first. So sustainability, in essence, is a holistic thing, It has many elements. It's not only environmental sustainability, and I think fashion lately has been focusing more on that aspect with all the materials and like CO2 and cutting out, all these the CO2 emissions. But I think fashion is forgetting the who made my clothes aspect. I mean, sometimes, and that is also part of sustainability. Who is making the clothes, how they are making them, if they are having the proper working conditions, if they are minors, etc., if they are women that are, bullied at work, etc. This is also part of course, sustainability in fashion. And there are many other aspects, and that's why nothing can be fully sustainable, actually. I think people forget that 100% sustainability does not exist. It only exists in nature, where something can fall down in the ground and then regenerate. But we can never do it, because we will always be spending the energy to create a product. So it can never be 100% sustainable, but it can be closer to becoming
I agree with that. I think there is no 100%. Even if you look at people creating product, we're using plastic and recycled plastic, and oh God, it's amazing we're recycling plastic, but at the end of the day, that plastic goes back into the ocean, and and kind of like starts all the problems that we had in the first place. So it's just, I think the thing is the effort, isn't it? It comes down to the effort. I mean, how would...
Well, I'm very interested in consumer behavior, so I would, look at what I can do. If we can consume better, we wear, we wash, recycle, and when you're looking at the business, try to make his business as circular as possible, and also facilitate it to consumers. Not only, just adding to this what you said already, not only to making, I'm not a designer, so I can't design clothes, but also thinking about the textiles, but also what we can do as a people, as a consumer, and how we can help this circular system going.
I think for me, I divided it into two categories. The first is sustainability, and that's where we think of materials, production, consumption. So you can go from how was this denim produced right the way through to how was it delivered to my house and what packaging did it arrive in. And then the second category I think of is ethical production. So how were the humans treated inside of that creation process? But across both, I really think of impact. And for me, if you just define good sustainable or good ethical, it's what impact has happened in that creation process and all the subsequent steps afterwards. Was it positive? Was it negative? Is it going to help us be here 200 years from now? What's the depth of meaning behind that?
I really liked also what Marta was saying about the consumer, the relationships that you have with a product. I've written about that, and I'm calling it human garment relationships. Being trained as a fashion designer, I thought it was quite striking that you of course take into account the wearer, the person you're designing for throughout your design process. You create the product, and then the idea is of course that you bring it out there into the market. And only later on, after finishing my education and working in the industry, I realized that we're not really focused on what that product eventually does with the person once it's being worn. Like, we sell it, and then we're on to the next collection or the next project. Whereas there's so much valuable insights and information in that process of appropriating and making it your own, and styling and restyling and mending. And I think that's something that we could really benefit more from as an industry if we try to spin out like more of that information and focus on those experiences that garments enable. So yeah, I think if we research that more, maybe we can learn how to design better also, with less determinism of what a garment eventually will do in the market.
I mean, taking it from what you just said, Pauline, I personally think education is where it all begins. Fashion designers that are being educated in fashion schools, they really need to be taught how to be sustainable. What's the point of making them create a collection at the end of the year using unsustainable materials? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think education should be an area where we start?
Can I go first?
You can go.
Sorry. Definitely education is super important. But also it's not interesting for everything, not for everyone, not for every consumer. Some consumers just want to wear clothes. So I think for those consumers, the companies should make it really easy to facilitate them to consume in a better way. Just put right in the face what they can do with the garments, how they should wear it. If there may be some kind of reward system that bring it back for recycle, just help them out, to make it super, super easy and timeless if they don't want to educate, because they have completely different interests. And when I was speaking with some people, they were saying, it's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, fashion? I'm not into fashion at all. But of course you're wearing clothes, so that means something. So for this kind of people, I think, education somehow, just as that really right in the face. And all the designers, of course, they need to be educated about all the sustainable possibilities out there.
I want to say something about the designers and all these sustainability masters. I was doing a master's recently. I'm finishing, actually, graduating soon. I think even all the programs that are teaching sustainability, they are very new, and there's really a long way to go. I mean, there's so many things that need to be added to the curriculum. It's really, I think there's nothing out there that is right now at the stage it should be. And I think the students are equally confused, and sometimes they feel like they have to go a different way to become successful, because we were talking about it yesterday, the product is so expensive, etc., and they're not sure that if they have such an expensive product, they will reach the audience they want. So there's so many challenges around this. I mean, yeah.
We were saying yesterday, there's so many different ways to be sustainable. So it's not only just a one path. Because sustainability, it was always associated with beige, middle class, and Birkenstocks. People will always think that when they thought about buying a sustainable brand. But I think in the last couple of years, a lot of fashionable brands have become sustainable. And I think consumers have learnt a lot as well. If you look at the Rana Plaza situation, when before we could just close our eyes really tight and not know what's going on and not know what's, the factories and everything like that. So, I mean, what would you tell a consumer now? Because things are changing so much. What would be your advice when it comes to sustainability?
I think it's the human cost. It's much easier for you to connect human to human than understand a supply chain. So if you put evidence in front of people, whether it is something like Rana Plaza incident, or even if it's the BAFTA green runway that happened this week, I think, it's human to human, it's example to example, and that's so much easier for us all to connect and understand. So as a consumer, the next time I buy something, do I want to be destructive towards someone's life or enhance it positively? So you're asking someone to make a really human-informed decision. And for me, that's the easiest way to educate people around it and create awareness. When you start talking to consumers about very detailed supply chain, it gets complex and you often lose them. I think transparency of information is key, and giving those curious consumers what they are looking for is important, but focusing on the human cost seems to be more impactful and effective.
I think this is where wearable technology can come in. I mean, what do you think about a connected garment? being able to get information about where it was made, how it was made, who made it, what materials are in there, the aftercare. If I don't want to wear it anymore, what can I do with it to get it recycled? I mean, are you kind of big fans of that, of the connected garment? Do you see a future for that?
So for me, I think it's essential, and there are many startups trying in this direction, and I think it's amazing, and we should be able to have all this information readily available to us. And I don't know why it was not like that before, but to the previous point, I think overconsumption needs also to be part of the discussion, because here we keep, talking about how to buy the right thing, but it's not only buying the right thing, it's actually buying less. I think we forget that. I mean, of course, if you come from the industry, you want to sell, right? But, I mean, we need to buy only what is necessary, really. I think we don't need to flood our closets anymore. This doesn't work, and I think it doesn't even work, we get very frustrated by having too many clothes, and people don't realize, I think.
But isn't that about changing consumer behavior, which is a very hard thing to change?
It is a very hard thing to change, and I think I cannot even convince my sister sometimes, but I'm still trying. I think clothes swaps is something very cool. This is just exchanging clothes instead of buying, because people always want to have something new. So Fashion Evolution will actually launch worldwide many clothes swaps this year. This is like the plan to tell everybody, just exchange your clothes and don't buy new clothes. And this is a very nice way to do it. And I can say that everything I wear today, maybe apart from the socks and the shoes, they are swapped clothes. This I got from a swap we organized in Luxemburg, and this is from a bazaar that a friend was selling her clothes, and this again from another one. And I think you can be well dressed if you have the eye for it, and if you go for classic clothes, and if you just appreciate the clothes that come, even if they are not new. I mean, if they look good, they are good enough, right?
Just out of curiosity, who in the audience would actually be very much all about swapping their clothes with other people? There's quite a few,
right,
but not everybody. I mean, I must admit, I am not one of those people. I'm all about sustainability, but I do feel like there's different ways you can be sustainable when it comes to your clothes. I'd rather buy quality and wear it for the next 20 years rather than buy something that I wear for like 3 months.
But maybe that's related to whenever you look at consumer habits and trends and how they change and how a movement is created, it is about awareness, excitement, and engagement. And if you can hook people on a certain topic, whether it's the human impact or how your garments were created, or even the furniture in your home or whatever, I kind of compare this to the trend that we've seen around food. So I think many people really consider, what do you put in your mouth? Where did it come from? What's the impact it's going to have on my body? What's in my supermarket trolley? Am I making good choices for my health, my life, and the places it's come from? And how we've seen that food trend change consumer behavior, I think that's what's happening in fashion and in retail now. And you get so many different customer profiles across the world. Some customers are still super interested in fast fashion, and for their lives, it's important to be wearing something new and different all the time. Other types of customers are not interested in that, and they're much more about awareness, making good informed choices, buying less, buying well, making it last. So I think it's just about finding what's important for each customer profile, hooking into other trends that they've seen, and pulling them with things that are important to them. So whether swaps do it for you, or great fashion designers with ethical supply chains do it for you, it doesn't really matter how we get you. It's just, let's get you.
But what it comes down to with activism is, I think, enabling people to act. And that's what I really like about the initiatives that you mentioned, the clothes swap, but also the Who Made My Clothes campaign, that you enable people to act. And not just, I think, if you think about activism in the 70s or the 80s, compare it to that, we often have become lazy. We like the Greenpeace page, we like the Fashion Revolution page, and we think we've acted out. We've put our opinion out there, we've made a stance, but that's not really activism. You have to act out something. And I think that really helps to changing that mindset and changing that attitude and eventually changing the behavior. So.
And sorry, just got really carried away on this topic. Many of our consumers live in capitalist societies or very status-oriented societies where what you buy and what you put on yourself to display your wealth and your position is supremely important. And I think one of the most powerful things you can do as a consumer in a capitalist society is decide where you're going to put your money. It lets you as an individual have an immediate impact. So it's a bit more active than liking a page, but it's not that hard. Like, just think twice about what you're going to buy and where your money's going to go. You know, I think many of us probably wouldn't invest in funds which are run by weapons companies, for example. So why would we do something bad with our purchase decisions in clothing too?
But still, you would need to communicate about it, because you could buy a high-end luxury piece in a second-hand shop. And people would think, oh, wow, she's really like, wow, she puts all her money on extremely luxurious clothes. But maybe it's a second-hand piece, or maybe you swapped it with your friend. So you still have to be very open and communicate with your environment about it. Yeah.
And that's why I think that going back to connected clothes, this might be so exciting, you know, because you have all this information, but maybe just not just having all the facts, you know, how it was done. Just engage consumer more, just, you know, allow to tell a story and then follow up what's happening with the garments. And that's really exciting, because I think that can really create the connection with owners and wear, you know, and clothes.
And I think it will get people respecting their clothes. We've lost respect for our clothes, you know. In my mum's generation, you know, she's still got dresses from the 60s, and she's still wearing them, you know. There was that respect. I bought this dress, I worked hard, I paid for it, I've got it, I put it on, I wear it for the next 30 years. Well, we kind of like, I buy a T-shirt, I wear it, yeah, it's boring now, I'm going to go back to the supermarket and get another one, you know. So we've lost that respect, and I think we need to go back to a point where we are more respectful. And I do think sustainability is a generational thing. You know, I think we're all from different generations on this panel, and I'm from the generation of, you know, we like to buy, we like to have nice things. Then you've got the under 25s, and they're from that generation of, they're very much aware of what it's doing to the planet, how the fashion industry is pollution, and they're kind of trying to be a bit more mindful. I mean, what are your thoughts with generational type of sustainability, you know, how they kind of react to being more sustainable?
I think the generation is one thing, and also location, and it's the other. London, it's very different than other cities. I moved to Zurich, the consumer is totally different. Then I'm going back to Poland to speak with my friends or friends of my parents, completely different subjects. So I realized that I'm a little bit in a bubble when I'm looking at my network, because everyone is so much into fashion and sustainability and innovation. But when I'm talking with outsiders, they have no idea what I'm talking about. 3D body scannings, made measures, like, so I'm trying to explain, it's like going back in time. It's like this customization, personalization, this is what innovative technology can help you to get now as well. But also, as we were talking before, you know, it's like in Poland, for example, 30, 40 years ago, there was communist time, there was nothing on the shelves. So if there was something occurred, then it's like people were buying 3 pairs of shoes for all the family. And I think that some of those behaviors really stayed. And it's like now you can buy, but people are buying, you know, much more because they think that's not going to stay there. It's like so, and it's really difficult to change behaviors with the older generation. That's why I think it's like in my research, I'm trying to focus on the younger one. It's slightly easier, and then to change habits in the earlier age, and then they're staying for a little bit longer.
I wanted to say, so there is this generation Z, and like, you know, woke generation, etc. I've read an article recently. There are many of them that they don't want to see wearing twice the same thing on social media, etc. I think that's where I think digital fashion is an amazing thing. And I would say this has to become mainstream somehow, really. I mean, it's okay to dress with a few clothes every day, and then you can buy as many digital clothes as you want and just dress your avatar on social media, and then it's fine. Like, we can, you know, invent a totally different way of wearing fashion, not in a physical way. And I think we can go many different ways, but this is a way that would be very sustainable for me and like fun, you know, kind of part of gaming, etc. There are many new ways. I mean, there are new things out there that we can embrace, but I think the new generation is a bit more open to this. Maybe it's too late for us, I don't know.
It's never too late. I don't believe that. But I think celebrities play a key role with sustainability. Quite a few of them wore the same outfit again on the red carpet, which is never heard of. So it's quite nice to see celebrities also pushing this. And I kind of feel like when it comes to generational, that if you've got a younger child than 15, the chances are they're going to think completely different to how we think and how we behave. So in terms of sticking with consumers, do you believe that they have the power to make a change with regards to high street brands like H&M, Zara? Do you think they've got that power to change the way they do business?
I think that Fashion Revolution was focusing a lot on consumer power early on. I now see that we realize that policy is also very important, and we keep forgetting that, governments, they have to really somehow create some rules. I mean, maybe not too strict, so that we call them then, I mean, they have to really not allow the products that are coming from, exploitation and sweatshops, etc., to be available at the same tax, for instance. They can have different tax incentives for sustainable products. And of course, consumers, I mean, you were saying consumers can learn and can choose. That they not always have the time. I mean, I live in Luxembourg. I see people are workaholic there. They want to, but they don't know how. They get very frustrated by not finding what they want, but by not having the time to sort, all these results online. I mean, they would like to get the right thing, but they really don't have the luxury of time.
This is where the apps come in, no?
Yeah,
There's an app called, is it Good On You?
Yeah.
Good On You. It's an app that you can download, and it will let you know what brands are more sustainable and how sustainable they are. So you've got things like that are actually helping consumers, I guess, gain knowledge about sustainable brands.
But I think the easier thing would be just while you're buying something, just to ask, how it was made, how I should care about it, and then shop assistant will start thinking about it, and then
they don't know usually. I am always asking. They don't know, and they get even embarrassed.
So the education, we're going back to education.
That's why it's good
but
to
if
ask.
consumers will start to ask, then they will have to get knowledgeable about the thing, and then that will
I can't
persuade a bit
imagine
further.
walking into Zara and be like, how is this jacket made? I can just see her going, it's very pretty, madam, you should buy it. I don't think they're actually given that knowledge by the stores. I don't think they want to give them that knowledge.
But I think that's why it's a really good thing to ask, because what usually happens in a retail environment is there's feedback meetings or discussion meetings per store that happen every couple of weeks. So if sales associates are being faced by particular questions from customers, they escalate that to managers escalate that to HQ. So if enough customers ask over a long enough period of time, it does permeate to HQ. And I think that's where, again, technology and online space has been really powerful, because it's allowed customers to ask these questions, whether it's on Instagrams or social media networks, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. It's that direct connectivity. So whether you're asking the question on a social channel or inside of the store, the more vocal you are as a customer, the more the subject goes up the line, and businesses have to start caring about it.
Wouldn't it be great if you organised something where over a day period, a lot of people just come in and ask that question, and then the store gets inundated with all these different people coming in asking
like
about
a
a
flash
jacket?
mob.
Exactly, like sustainable flash mob, and get them have it escalated really fast. I mean, anyone has got any thoughts with regards to consumer power and what they can do to push brands?
I think it's huge. Again, it depends on the region of the world you're in and the price point you're shopping at. But ultimately, you're the person taking the money out of your wallet and giving it to the brand. And I know this is a change in dynamic, especially for the luxury industry, to put more emphasis on customer need and demand. But you actually have all the power. You've got the money in your pocket. If you decide to keep it there or give it to brand A or B, that's you using your voice.
Yeah, it's two things at once, because you indeed have the power, and I think we should definitely show people that they have the power, because they're also a lot of times seduced by so many things that are coming at them that they have to resist. So yeah, it works a bit both ways. So it's not only the consumer power, but it's also how the brands and companies are dealing or treating that power.
mean, sticking with consumers, I know that it's all about what you have in your purse. You know, if there's a shirt in H&M, it's $4.99, and then you got like an organic version for $7.99. If you only got €5 in your pocket, you're going to buy the $4.99, whether it's sustainable or not. So, do you think sustainability is a class issue? You know, how can we include everybody in this movement and not just people who have the kind of the financial stability to kind of pay for certain things, because you've got people who don't have that money. So how can they be sustainable?
Well, Stella already mentioned, some people indeed they don't have time. They have other much bigger worries than to consider sustainability when they're shopping for clothes, or they simply don't have enough money. And again, I think activism is a really good way to involve these people. One of the things I'm currently doing, which relates to this idea of sustainability and energy transition, is to host workshops with people where we're hand weaving with solar cells. So we're bringing photovoltaic energy harvesting materials into the process of hand weaving. So on one hand, we're teaching these people what it takes to weave a piece of cloth, which a lot of people actually they don't know anymore. They haven't been taught at all. They don't even know the difference between a woven textile or a knitted textile.
I think home economics has stopped, hasn't it? Because when I was in school, I had home economics.
Yeah.
I sewed.
Yeah.
You know, so they need to bring it back, I think.
I think the more northern countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they still have a lot of craft and handwork in primary school. In Holland, for example, we hardly have any. So we teach these people what it takes to weave a piece of cloth, how much time that actually can take. But we also teach them what it means to harvest energy through that piece of cloth, what it means to engage with the sun, with the energy. We share what I call sun stories. So we share daily rituals or social practices that are related to energy, to the sun, and what role our clothes or even other pieces of textile in our daily environment can play a role in that. And those conversations, I think, can really contribute to more awareness, and then eventually maybe also change their behavior over time.
I don't think that it's only class issue and the financial problem to be sustainable. I think there is a lot of fault of aggressive marketing and escalating trends. You know, people want to be on trend. But, you know, there are other solutions. You can buy secondhand, you can swap, you can really take care of the garment, buy only this what you really need, and then save a little bit more for it, you know? Do you really need this second new t-shirt for $4.99, or maybe you can buy next week for $8, right? So I think that could be something to think about. Just show people there are other solutions. What can they do? Or if the sustainable garment is really more expensive, then just find and buy in a different way, or don't buy it all.
Yeah, I think it's about broadening that definition again to include things like recycling and swapping and mending and caring for things. But there's another side to it, which is the social responsibility that these businesses have, and the profit margins they have and the scale at which they're producing. And you know, you could compare Primark with Marks and Spencer's as an example. There's two different price points there. There's two different customer demographics there. But the steps that Marks and Spencer's are making towards transparency in their supply chain and better choices in their supply chain, you know, how can businesses like Forever 21 do that? And how would that affect their pricing? So I think it's two sides. It's broadening the definition and lots of different price points have lots of different options, but then the social responsible part from the businesses themselves around how much they should be producing and at what cost, what human cost especially.
It's actually true that, yeah, most of the sustainable products are a bit more expensive or a lot more expensive, but I think we can just somehow go back, you know, our grandparents, they always had something nice to wear, but they had fewer things. Probably they had, you know, their best outfit for Sunday to go to church, etc. And they were happy with it. As you say, they were respecting the clothes a lot more because they were buying less, they were keeping it for longer. And nowadays, I think we are just in this overconsumption mode that is problematic. And I think a good tip in general that I give also to many students and to school pupils is to use the capsule wardrobe theory and to somehow have enough clothes to combine them in like a smart way and make, you know, many different outfits out of the same clothes. And this is a way to have less clothes and to be always stylish and well dressed and spend less and actually be classy all the time, because you can wear these clothes like, you know, certain pieces like a black pair of pants or like, you know, a black jacket. These are eternal. I mean, they can, if they are good quality, they can last and they can be always
See, that's the point you made,
fashionable.
good quality. Most stuff is not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us have washed our clothes in the washing machine and after like 10 washes, it's got little holes in it, like a little mouse has been munching away. So, you know, so you buy these clothes, you want to keep them, but then the quality is in there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, how can you be sustainable with some clothes that are such low quality?
I think that's the challenge back to businesses. That really, should you be producing something that's going to last 3 washes and land up in a landfill? And that's maybe where activism from customers up to businesses becomes more important. It's, you know, we often ask the question, who's responsible for this problem? We all are, whether it's a government or a business or an individual. And maybe governments should be putting some minimum guidelines down.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking policy could make it easy. Like they could have a guarantee for clothes just as they have for any other product. And then you can say this product has to last minimum, I don't know, a year or 2.
I mean, I think legislation definitely will make a change. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that governments are not getting involved? Is it because of the big brands, maybe, and the money involved, you know, behind the scenes that we don't see?
But look, now in France, they're going to ban that you can't burn, you can't destroy the clothes which haven't been sold. So that's really good thing. Then another thing is, I think in 3 years, there will be change with washing machines. They will have to have a special filter that the microplastic is not going to water. So the government start thinking about it. They start doing some steps slowly, unfortunately, but
Small steps.
some things are happening.
There's some trade bodies too. I know I was reading last week about the British Retailer Association that's introduced vegan standard definitions for vegan clothing. So if a designer or a supplier or a retailer wants to certify something as vegan leather, vegan shoes, etc., there's certain standard criteria they have to conform to in the same way, again, you do with food. So whether it's government or trade bodies, it's coming, and the more customers demand it and the more that we see the evidence of the challenge facing us and climate change and so forth, the more it will come.
See, that's why I'm a big fan of smart materials. I think that the future is new materials, because what we're using now is not really working. So if we're able to get a material that is biodegradable, and you don't have to worry that it's going to end up in a landfill and so forth. I mean, what are your thoughts of smart materials? Do you think it's realistic to be able to grow your own leather, or do mycelium, use that as a material? I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's a realistic option in terms of manufacturing, in terms of mass producing, or is it just something that's a bit of a dream?
I find it a great option, actually, but I do think that it is also expensive, but maybe the price will go down eventually. Still, not many people are convinced. I'm like a big fan. I would totally wear anything. Even the spider silk seems amazing, and there are so many materials out there. But there are people, I guess the new generation will embrace all these solutions. We are now in the transition, and that's why there's a lot of friction. I think it's going to be more easy as it goes.
I'm a bit of a dreamer, but also quite grounded in reality and a realist. So I think it's doable as long as we put the innovation power behind it. We can develop these materials to the extent that they can be worn on a daily basis. I think there's already examples out there. I mean, I work a lot with technology also. I've even seen biodegradable electronics. I had a Skype last week with a company in Spain that makes biodegradable batteries, paper batteries. So then if this is a disposable battery, it doesn't even matter because it completely degrades in nature. And that really keeps me optimistic that we have such a future.
I think that a lot of new materials are very expensive, so they definitely need to scale to be more affordable. And also going back to clothes that have to last. I don't think all consumer will change. Some really want to wear something once and then throw it away. And then smart new textiles can help as well. For example, some paper clothes. You just wear it once and then you can recycle very easily. So there are solutions and potential with this as well. Oh, I don't know if you heard about the company Pangaea. They've done, instead of down, they've got flowers, warming you, heating you up, so that's really nice as well. And I think they are selling now, and all this behind, it's really nice, and it's working, and you can buy it now as well.
Bringing it back to electronics, Pauline, I know a lot of people who want to wear clothes with what kind of wearable technology, I guess, are worried about the sustainable angle of that. Like, if I was to wear a garment with technology in it and I don't want to wear it anymore, how can I get rid of it sustainably? How can I do I need to take out the technology? How does it all work? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and also an issue that keeps me busy a lot. Of course, we need to take care that if we integrate these technologies, that they can be recyclable, that they can be separatable from the garments. So that they have to be integrated also. Not just the material needs to be smart, but we need to deal in a smart way with it and design and construct and assemble the garment in such a way that we can process it again after the end of life of the product and design it in a way that it will last long, that the consumer will enjoy it for a long time, as opposed to most of the wearable devices out there that do end up in drawers after half a year of usage. And that's a key problem. And to be fair, I would not want to be responsible for putting such products in the market, not without extensive testing of how people appropriate it, how they use it, how they experience it, and when they would actually toss the products aside. One thing that I'm working with a lot at the moment is printed electronics. So these are screen-printed electronics based on silver inks, typically, or carbon inks, and then heat-bonded, laminated onto the textiles. The benefit of this is that you can also easily delaminate it, as opposed to, for example, weaving or knitting conductive or metallized or other types of fibers into a fabric that's more difficult to separate. But there's still a lot of research necessary. When I go to conferences about wearable technology, there's always a lot of talk about sustainability. It's still a big concern. Yeah.
Sustainability is the key word of 2019. I think it's going to continue into 2020. Do you see a future where the word sustainability will disappear and it will just be fashion?
Yes. I think it's happening already. I know from some work in education networks, we spoke about younger people and customer profiles. Something that's sustainable and ethical is part of the standard mindset. It's not something that you should even have to explain or have to make an extra effort to do. It should just be that way. And there's a few brands that we work with in our group and that I work with in advisory network where there's the same attitude, is that if you make something a normal, standard, regular sort of expectation, then you carry forward from a point of power. So I'll use Pateau as an example. This is a mark that LVMH has recently brought back to life, and everything in their business, from the furniture in the office to the coat hangers to the products they create, their attitude is to do this in a sustainable and ethical way from the ground up. It's not in any of their advertising campaigns, because the creative directors and CEOs' perspective on this is it should just be this way. This is the new standard that we're working towards. And that's quite an advanced and extreme mindset, but I think the more of that we see, the more we all push the standard further.
And I'm gonna kind of talk about the elephant in the room, which is greenwashing. A lot of companies are either accused of being greenwashing or they are scared of being accused of greenwashing. Would you say we're at a stage where a lot of fashion brands are greenwashing? They don't believe in what they're selling, but they're selling it because they feel like they have to.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I think this is where education and awareness become really important, because the more your customer knows about the subject and the more the customer can dig into the claims that are being made by that retailer or designer, the more easy it is to disprove. And I think there's one thing that, we all know consumers are pretty smart and they will have strong reactions to lies and so forth. So I think we might have seen a lot of greenwashing in the past. It's becoming more difficult to do as customers become more educated. And the backlash on it is huge. So it's an area I think you have to be very careful in.
But let me say, at the same time, I think really accusations about greenwashing all the time are really counterproductive, and I see it a lot on LinkedIn. Like whichever campaign someone finds amazing and inspiring, someone else will find it greenwashing. And it's huge, and I find this is not helping anyone. And as you say, it scares many companies, and I've been discussing about it a lot, and I see that many companies, they don't want to make a first step because they think they will be accused of greenwashing. And I think we have to be a bit more tolerant somehow and a bit more, see the big picture. And this is anyways guiding the conversation forward in a way, any small step and any small action to sustainability.
I think one of the big problems with fashion industry is that it's very secretive, You can't see what we're doing because you're going to copy it and then we're not going to be the first. So when it comes to sustainability, I think collaboration is key. I loved Eric Bang. He was on stage last season and he talked about H&M Innovation Lab and how they are doing it for the entire industry as opposed to just doing it for H&M. I mean, do you see like all the big companies, especially talking to you, Theresa, because you work for such a big company, being able to share information and share knowledge so the whole industry as a whole can go forward in a more positive manner?
I mean, also coming from a technology background, I think sharing information is the fastest way that you can learn and grow. I don't think this is a point of competitiveness. I think this is a point of survival. And I don't mean survival of your business. I mean survival of the human race and the planet that we live on. So from my personal view, I think you have to share. You should share. We will all learn and grow more quickly if we do. That said, it is a very competitive industry. I know even inside of our group, between the maison, they're very competitive and don't like to share between them. But the point that we try to make behind all of this is it's not a subject where you compete. It's a subject where you act together to make a big difference. And I always find the example of Stella McCartney's business truly inspirational. They've spent years developing all kinds of new production methods and new types of materials, and I don't think they hold any patents on that. All of that intellectual property has gone out into the world for the industry to use as they like, because that was their mission, to move everybody forward. They've been the first, definitely, and they've made a great approach of it, and they've really paved the way for everyone else. So I think we have to share.
I mean, I love the fact that Stella McCartney worked with Bolt Threads, and I think she brought a good amount of attention to wearable technology and new fabrics, and she kind of made the whole industry see that it's possible to collaborate with scientists. Because I think he didn't even know who Stella McCartney was, because he was all about science and technology and all this stuff. So I think collaboration is definitely key, and I think people in the industry need to work with scientists and engineers and people like that in order for us to go forward. I mean, do you think in terms of collaboration that it's going to continue, or do you think the new generation is going to be educated in both fashion and science? So with the collaboration, there'll be no need for collaboration anymore because they know everything.
That's a very nice perspective, actually, and they should. And even this division, between the two, I think it should not exist. I mean, yeah, it's very strange. And now, as we have also this other thing that like technology is for boys and this is for girls, I think we are in this new phase that we are seeing everything from a different point of view. We are a lot more inclusive, and inclusivity means so many things, and it can also mean that we should not separate. And fashion also is seen as something frivolous, but it's not frivolous anymore. And there's so much discussion of how fashion can help the planet. So fashion has become like such a serious topic nowadays. And yes, technology and fashion, they go well together, in my opinion. Why not?
I think, it's very difficult to be best in everything. That's why it's very important to be open-minded, and it's very interesting to go into different industry to find some inspirations. So something that you haven't been thinking about. Very often when I'm doing research, I'm going to some very different industry events just to try and think and learn and speak with different-minded people. It's like, to learn from them and then to outsource some stuff. So I think maybe it's not the best to do everything by yourself. Maybe collaboration will be better, and then you've got more interesting mix as well.
Well, I think education has been quite siloed, but I really see this already being breaking open a lot. And I would encourage not only this collaboration between design and arts and science, but also to have more people from the business side involved and having financial and economic experts to kind of like redesign, reimagine, envision new business models and new offerings. I was reading an article a week ago which was about how our population will be declining at some point in the next 50 years. The fertility rates in Western society, so to say, is already below the reproduction rate, basically, below 2.1, I think it's kids per woman. At some point, the whole population will be declining. We now have an aging population, which is why we're still with a lot of people, but not just from a sustainability point of view. Of course, we have to change our industry. But if you think about less and less people being on this planet eventually, then that's another. Also, from a capitalist point of view, we really have to rethink these economic and societal models. So that's also part of this this larger question here, I think.
I think one of the biggest catalysts for change in luxury industry and retail was Curryn's environmental P&L that they founded a number of years back, because that categorically showed the financial impact of making better choices in your supply chain. And it's something they've really showed phenomenal leadership on, and it's been adopted by more and more businesses, and now we see B Corps and so on, and all of these new ways of thinking about business, which are not purely about your bottom profit line, but all these other subjects. It's the future, and there's more to be done.
I didn't realise the time, so I wanted to throw questions out there. Anyone of you got questions that you'd like to ask the ladies? Any specific questions?
Don't be shy.
Anyone? Okay, well, the good news is that I'm going to be taking these ladies to the press lounge, which is located near where the coffee is at the back, so we can continue this conversation and I can interview them and let people kind of hear what they have to say who haven't been able to come to this event. So if you would like to ask them questions one-on-one, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer them. So thank you so much for attending, much appreciated, and have a great time at the Keyhouse.